everybody, this is Shelby with Hooks, Books, and Crime, and it's craft and story time. If you're watching from YouTube, you'll be able to see my channel, and you'll be able to see me crochet. And if you're not, then you're just going to hear me talk. I'm sorry about that for you, because I don't know about my voice. I sound better than last time, though. My allergies are still, but way better than what they were, that's for sure. But, so I had put out a reel. I'm clearly making Daria, or I put that in my last episode also. I'm clearly making Daria. I just gotta steam her jacket, and then I'll put it out like how she came out. I'm proud, but not. You'll see why. But Halloween's coming. I gotta prepare. Me and my kids are gonna be, I'm gonna be Linda Belcher, and I have 3 kids, and they're gonna be her kids, Tina, Jean, and Louise. So I am making my daughter's Louise dress that way, and I gotta make her hat also, because I don't know if I'm gonna just find like an olive colored dress for a kid that's like, you know, just plain or solid. That's what I'm looking for. Like that's just a solid. You know, the Jean outfit and Tina outfit are super simple. I can really just go to Old Navy for those. I wasn't 100% sure on the Louise dress, so that's what I'll be working on today. I'm actually super proud of myself too, because I figured this out all by myself. Yeah, I did buy a pattern on Etsy because I didn't know if I was getting like, if my idea of how the sleeves would work. And I think it was just like a stitch or 2 off in my idea. So I'm like, oh, I'm finally getting it after I don't know how many years. I've been crocheting since COVID. So what's that, 5? But I don't get to crochet regular, and I made a lot of blankets in the beginning. We all kept having babies. Like when I had my son, me and my sister-in-law were pregnant at the same time. We were 6 months apart. And then the next year, her and I got pregnant again. And then my other sister-in-law got pregnant with twins. So we had 5 grandkids in 1 year. So I was just making a bunch of baby clothes and like headbands and stuff for her daughter and everything. So it was a good time. So now I get to venture out a little bit more. Alrighty. So our story actually takes place in a coastal town called Gulfport, Mississippi. And it seems I'm from South Central Texas, so I vacationed in the Gulf Coast a lot. We went to South Padre Island every summer. If we're not in South Padre, we are in Port Aransas, which is where me and my kids and my man, we all went this summer. Multiple times. It's a 2-hour drive, like 2.5-hour drive from us. South Padre is about 4 to 5. I do like South Padre better though. And for people who are like from Florida and everything, I used to work with this girl from Puerto Rico, for example, you know, where they're used to that super blue water. That's why I always like laugh at people who are like, what do you mean? Look how blue the water is. Water is always blue. Not in the Gulf. The water, you don't get that beautiful blue. So if you're from somewhere with beautiful oceans like that, the Gulf Coast is going to throw you off. Because it's not. It's nice though. It's not like poo-poo water or anything. It's nothing like that. But you know, you don't get like the beautiful picturesque island like Hawaii and stuff like that. That's for sure. But that's because it's not the ocean. It's the Gulf. Anyway, so we are in Gulfport, Mississippi. It's 1970. And so in 1970, John Garrison meets Betty. And John Garrison he's a salesman for computers and appliances, which I'm like in the 70s. I'm like very curious, like what kind of computers he's selling. And I feel like that would be more for like businesses, right? I don't think people in the 70s had computers in their house. And if you did, you're like rich. That's just my assumption. I wasn't alive back then. But from what you hear, computers weren't like, you know, a commodity, that's for sure. And Betty is actually a social worker. So clearly someone who has a lot of compassion, cares about children and keeping the family together. So yeah, Betty sounds pretty rad. And even though, because you know how, you know, salesmen, right? What do we know about salesmen? They're always like really in their face and very extroverted and yeah. And what can I do to get you in this car today? Like, fuck off, dude. Shit like that. But John's not like that. John's more artsy and more of an intellectual. So he actually woos Betty by writing her poetry and writing her songs and everything. That's how he wins her over, which I mean, really, fairy tale, right? That sounds lovely. So they get married 2 years later in 1972, and you know, they go ahead and buy a house. Both of them keep working and everything. It is a two-income household. But that changes in 1975 when Betty gets pregnant with their first daughter, Shannon. She becomes a homemaker and a stay-at-home mom. And then 2 years after Shannon's born, in 1977, Melissa comes. And their family is complete. They have no more children after this. And the girls are, I feel like when you get two, you either get two that are very much the same or very different. And in this case, the girls are very different. Different interests. One's closer to one parent than the other. So Shannon is actually very close to her dad, but she relates to her dad a lot more. She herself is artsy. She likes to write. She loves music. And Melissa, you could really just sum Shannon up as the thinker of the two. Shannon is the more to analyze and maybe even overthink things. She's more in tune with things like that. And Melissa is the carefree, happy-go-lucky one. She's the one that if something's bothering her, you wouldn't know because she's going to play it off with a happy face. And she's just going to be in people's company and make friends with people everywhere she goes. And those are the girls. And the girls, they have a pretty good life. They have a pretty good upbringing. This is until 1984. So John actually starts getting very restless in his job. He has his hobbies don't match what he does for work and to earn a living. Though he earns a good living, he's not happy with what he's doing. And it seems to have taken a toll on his and Betty's relationship. And in 1984, they get divorced or filed by Betty. Now, he sees this as an opportunity really to fulfill his dreams and start a whole new beginning and a whole new path. So he decides to move to New York and become a pilot. And really doesn't really come back around. He's an absentee father at that point. And the girls, of course, they're 7 and 9 at the time. So they're old enough to really feel and see the changes and how this is affecting their parents. How this is affecting their parents in their household. They can feel it. They can see it. And Shannon, because she was so close to her dad, she really struggles with this. I have no doubt that girl felt abandoned because your dad's going, especially when you're in this small town, maybe it's less exciting. It's not a metro area. There's not a lot of hustle and bustle. And when your parents is moving to New York, I feel like that would sting because it's a whole new experience and you hear all these cool things about it, especially when you're a kid, New York, the Big Apple, you hear all this stuff about it. There's so many movies that take place in New York because of how it is, and you're just left behind and they never come back for you. So Shannon is very much struggling with this. Melissa, of course, it sucks for her too, but while Shannon is more upset about the loss of her dad, Melissa is more upset about the lifestyle change that occurs from the divorce. You see, though they were always a one-income household, their father made a substantial amount more money than what Betty was going to be offered when she went back into the workforce. He was the breadwinner in that family when she was working. So they have to downsize to a smaller house. Back then in the 70s, department store shopping was a big deal. Not in the 70s, in the 80s, department store shopping was a big thing. Dillard's, Macy's, Foley's, Sears, Mervyn's. They couldn't afford that anymore. So they were going to, more affordable clothing shopping. From what I understand, they were even shopping in thrift stores. And this was noticed also socially, not just in Betty's circle, but in school. So they're all being judged and kind of, whispers behind their back and everything. Betty actually, her social status took a big hit because she was a single mom now. And that still wasn't as common in the 80s. You heard about it more, but it definitely wasn't super prevalent. I think it was becoming more in that time. But if you're in a conservative town, it doesn't matter. Divorce is divorce. Let's not make any mistake in how Betty handled this after handled being a single mom. Betty took this in stride. That woman worked. She found a job, but she would also do side jobs and little side gigs, like, taxes for her friends and people in town, stuff like that. She hustled and she did what she had to do. However, she was able to pay the bills and keep food on the table, but that's kind of about as much as she could do. There was no more excess, and if there was, it was less often and less common than what it was before. But she made do, and she loved her girls, and she really did the best that she could. She's a strong woman, and, she was going to be damned if she was going to fail her kids. Later on, she does start dating again. She meets a man named Herbert Wilson, and Herbert's wife had actually passed away from cancer a few years before. He had 2 small children. They were younger than her girls. He had a son and a daughter, and he really loved Betty. He really cared about her, and he cared about her daughters, and Betty really loved his children as well. It seemed like this was a very beautiful and happy blended family. Herbert's children, they even say that they adored Betty. You see, Herbert's daughter, she was the youngest of the 2. She was only 2 years old when her mom died, so she really has no memory of her mother. So for Betty to step in, treat them no different than her other kids, this was his daughter's first time having a mother figure. And I really couldn't imagine what that must feel like for her, because, there was an emptiness. It breaks my heart when you hear about kids, who have to grow up without a parent, because it's in their face every day that they're not there, whether they passed away or because they did it by choice. It's heartbreaking, really. But Herbert and her really care about each other a lot. And he does what he can for Betty, and she does what she can for him. And through the years, they never move in together or anything, and I think I understand why. And we'll get to that. But they notice that Shannon is just, as she's getting older, she is getting angrier and angrier. She is full of teen angst. She's giving Betty a really hard time, and she clearly wants to grow up quicker. Which, oh God, I was like that, and God damn it, they really they really are right when they tell you don't grow up. You shouldn't want to grow up too fast, because being an adult sucks. It doesn't. But I wish I would have held on to, I would have enjoyed just being a kid longer. That's for sure. And Shannon, she did not heed this warning. This girl was, she was, always angry at her mom. Everything was Betty. She really was angry at her mom. But, really, who else could she be angry at? Even if she's angry at her dad, Betty's the only one there available to take it. She can't direct it to her father because he's not there and he doesn't come around. So I think a lot of it was projection. She's angry, and Betty's the only one available, so Betty's gonna take all of it, which is really heartbreaking. So Shannon she is out of control. She is rebelling full speed. And, it's the early 90s where 1992 airs grunge. Grunge is blowing up. So she's all into that world. Her room is painted black, and she's at Betty's throat. Really, she's just, she has it out for Betty. And Betty is, like most teenage girls, their mother is the cause of all their problems. That's how Shannon feels about Betty. Everything wrong with Shannon's little life is Betty's fault. And really, aside from not having a dad and having rules, it doesn't sound like Shannon has it that bad. I think Shannon is still a little spoiled and ungrateful. So, and at one point, Shannon and Betty are at it again, bickering, and Shannon hits her mother. I caught my mom's hand one time when she tried to slap me, and I was terrified the rest of the car ride home. I just sat there and was like, oh shit. She got me. when I least expected it. Because and that was the thing. Betty was no pushover. Shannon hit her, and Betty didn't hit her back or anything like that. She didn't fight fire with fire. She called the police on her. And this pisses Melissa off because Melissa is mortified that the police are at her house. This is a very gossipy town. She goes to school with people who live on the block. Like, she doesn't need anybody to know, like, that's going on. And, I mean, I'm the same way, too. If I see police anywhere near where I live, I'm like, who are you here for? What'd they do? Are they outside? Are you talking to them? I'm nosy as fuck. I am very nosy, especially when it comes to stuff like that. Sorry, I just thought of a funny story. Somebody posted, like, a fight on Facebook. They're like, why do I feel like it's in slow motion? And I was looking at it and I was like, damn, that tiny one looks like my cousin. But I mean, I didn't even know they go to that bar. I should have known because they kind of go to every bar. But yeah, I was like, huh. And then sure enough, my other cousin comes into frame. I'm like, damn it. Those girls are wild as shit, man. They're always fucking fighting. It was funny. Anyway, Melissa's mortified. Melissa's pissed off. And Melissa, she kind of fans the fire, because she is constantly siding with her mom and interjecting herself into their arguments and really showboating that she's the good one, because Betty doesn't have any problems with Melissa. Melissa doesn't cause her any trouble. I mean, I have no doubt that there's like little moments, but she's not having to increase how much she watches her and everything like that. She doesn't really have to worry about Melissa the way she has to worry about Shannon. And so after this, you know, Betty gets stricter, no MTV, which I have no doubt that was like a grounding. No MTV, because I mean, even for me, MTV was life before I discovered Fuse. So while this is going on, Melissa is like thriving. That girl, she's in 8th grade. She's the junior prom queen. She's super popular. She gets good grades. She's a great student. She's like on top of it. But in 1992, Melissa goes into insulin shock. She has type 1 diabetes, which is very serious. And she ends up hospitalized for days. And this was a very scary wake-up call for Betty, because Betty thought that Melissa was eating right and doing as she should, and apparently not. After this episode, she searched Melissa's room and found candy wrappers hidden under the bed. Like, this girl didn't understand, or she understood and she just didn't care anymore. I'm not too sure. I'm sure it gets old, especially at that age when all your friends are eating all this, you know, junk food and stuff like that, and you can't partake. And if you do, you can't really indulge, because you're gonna end up hospitalized like she did. What is happening here? So now, even though Melissa is still the good one, she's kind of being micromanaged with her diet. Betty is constantly making sure she's not eating what she's supposed to, making sure she's eating what she should be eating, and she's kind of on top of her. But, I mean, it makes sense. Melissa proved that she's being irresponsible with her diabetes, and it's not like a damn puppy, which even that can go fucking south real quick. It's her livelihood. Hospital bills are fucking expensive. All right. So while this is going on with Melissa, Shannon, you know, is fucking upping up the ante, and she decides that she's gonna steal her mom's car. She sneaks out of the house, takes her mom's car, and fucking crashes it. She totals the car. The car is like wrecked. And Betty's the sole provider of this household. If Betty doesn't have a car, how the hell is she gonna work and bring in money? How's she gonna, you know? Kids, don't think about shit. So this is why we can't do a lot of shit before we're 18, because we're fucking dumb. Betty is super pissed, as she should be, and she starts locking shit down more, especially when, you know, Shannon catches the car. But now Shannon has a new boyfriend named Mike also, and Mike is older. Mike's a former gang member. He drinks. He's getting her into drinking. She's sneaking out more. And then one day Betty comes home and finds them having sex, which, yikes, oh my God, I can't even imagine the fury that came out of her. Betty raises hell, makes Mike leave. Shannon is forbidden from seeing Mike. I have a feeling that she was already kind of forbidden, and now it's like forbidden. Like, and you know, Betty, I'm sure, is like crying herself to sleep at this point because she's probably at her wit's end. What else can you do? Betty has to be two parents. She can't be soft. She has to be hard. She has to really, really do what she can to maintain control. And then, so while all this is happening, she's pissed about the sex. I mean, Shannon's basically like on lockdown. It's like, you go to school, you come home. You have no reason to be anywhere else. Probably can't talk on the phone, or if she's talking on the phone, you better hang up by 5 o'clock. You have no business talking to anybody at night. Sun's down, phone's off, phone's on the hook. Because you're probably going to be making plans with dumb shit. So, you know, they're under lockdown. Rightfully so. So Shannon concocts this idea of, okay, well then I'll just use Melissa as a distraction. And the way she does this is, so across the street from where they live, a new boy has moved in. His name, and I'm not kidding, by the last name, is Alan Gould. Not spelled like the supernatural Ghoul. Goul, Ghoul. Still didn't know that was a last name. Made me laugh. It's like, okay. So, Ghoul. I wouldn't have so many fucking ways to make fun of that kid in school. Now, Alan is Melissa's age. He's new and he's rather shy, quiet. He doesn't know anybody. So Shannon befriends him and sets him up with Melissa. And I mean, pretty quickly, this shit escalates very quickly between the two. They become friends. Next thing you know, they're a couple. Next thing you know, Melissa's leaving her window open at night for Alan to sneak in. Next thing you know, they are being physically intimate together. They are past making out. They are doing the full deed. They are 15 years old. And one day when Alan is sneaking back into his house, his stepmom catches him. And she just walks on over there and goes and confronts Betty. And I mean, poor Betty, if this town is as gossipy as it sounds, could you imagine like the looks? And I know you're not supposed to care about what people think and everything like that, but I have no doubt it still applies pressure. Even if you were to let it roll off your back, it still applies pressure because maybe you're feeling the way they're judging you, you're already feeling about yourself. So it sucks. Now, both of Betty's girls are out of control. Both of Betty's girls, one sneaking out to see boys, one sneaking, bringing boys in. Like, she can't win. This poor woman, because she was pushed to really her wit's end. She thought she was at her wit's end. Now she's really at her wit's end. This woman goes full drastic lockdown because I don't think she knew what else to do. And, they had camps to send your fucking bad kids out and everything. She couldn't afford that shit. They weren't really stealing or anything, so she can't send them to Juvie. She can't send them to military school. That's expensive too. So what does Betty do? Betty has Herbert set up alarm systems. Those magnetic ones where, they're connected. You open the window and they separate. The siren goes off. He had this not on the windows, but she had him put it on the doors. On all the doors but the front door. The front door was locked, and Betty went to bed every night with the key tied around her neck. Yeah. And then she had the windows nailed shut, which, honestly, I agree with all of this, but the windows part, only because of fire hazards. That's what makes me nervous about anything like that. Fire. So, these girls, it's a prison lockdown at this point. And what happens when people are in one space, crowding each other all day long? Everybody's fighting. They're all bickering at each other. Everybody's at each other's throats. Everybody's pissed off at someone. It doesn't sound like a house with very much peace. Betty is just trying to keep it together, keep her daughters from getting in trouble, avoid teen pregnancies. And while all this is going on, Melissa's still with Alan, but all of this is really about to come to a head. Somewhere it's gonna snap, and it does. So on July 7th of 19 in the summer, police are called to the Garrison's home because of a body being discovered. When the police arrive, they find Betty Garrison is in her bedroom. She's dead on the floor. She has a bunch of trauma to her neck, and she's been stabbed multiple times in the chest. And in the house are Melissa and Shannon, but also Alan's stepmom is there. They ran to her to report, like, because they were freaking out. And Melissa apparently was like hysterical when they get there. They could not get her to calm down, to stop crying. She was hysterical. But as police are searching the property, they're a little confused as well, because there's no sign of forced entry, as well as, well, the only place that this person would have got in is through Melissa's window. And that's because Melissa had pulled the nails out of her window. Because Melissa is so distraught and so hysterical, they can't even question her at first. So they have to question Shannon. And Shannon tells the police that night around 1:30 in the morning that her and Melissa, they pulled the nails out of the window and they snuck out and went to go hang out with some friends. A friend drove them back to their house. They sneak in, check on their mom to make sure she's asleep so they can steal her keys and steal her car. When they come home is when they discover that she's dead. And that's when they call the police. And like I said, like, this police call was early in the morning to where the sun is barely coming up. And so police are like, okay, that's interesting. And while they're still at the crime scene though, they noticed a boy is just lurking about the crime scene. Everywhere they look outside, he's just always standing somewhere, just lurking, being weird. So they decide to confront him and ask him some questions. He's clearly interested. His intrigue draws the officer's intrigue. So when they talk to him, he says that he's Alan. He lives across the street and he's close to the sisters. But as they're talking to him, okay, so this is the South in July. It's fucking hot. This kid's in a black hoodie, which I know teens do that shit anywhere. I would never understand that because it's hot as shit here. Why the fuck are you in a hoodie in 100-degree weather? It's gross. Ugh, the sweat. Nasty. Now, but also as they're talking to him, he keeps like literally covering his neck as he's talking, or he keeps like pulling up his hoodie and his shirt. He's making it very, very obvious he's trying to hide his neck. So, I mean, the cops just talking to him and like, noted. So they bring Alan in for questioning because of this. Well, they ask his stepmom first, and she's just like, go right ahead. So while they're talking to Alan, he gives the same story as the girls because he says that he went with them when they snuck out. He's one of the friends they went to go hang out with, which would make sense. It's Melissa's boyfriend, and they live across the street. Why wouldn't they go together? But also, Shannon and Melissa didn't get very much along, so the idea that they snuck out and hung out with friends together is a little weird. But then at the same time, you know, misery loves company, and so does trouble. So I guess it's not too far-fetched. But then they get onto the topic of his neck and they make him pull it down and they see he is full of scratches. And they ask him, what are those? What's going on with your neck? You keep drawing our attention there because you won't stop touching it. And then his story changes a little. Suddenly, they all went to the beach and he got in a fight. And the officers are a little confused at that too. Because, I mean, if you're fighting in the sand, you're still going to be dropping sand. Like in your hair, your clothes, literally everything. Something is still going to be dropping sand. And there was none. He didn't drop any on the right there, like where he was sitting. There wasn't any like on the chair. There was no sign of sand. So they weren't buying his story. But because of what's on his neck, they tell him that what they're going to do with the body, with the victim's body, with Betty, is they're going to clip her nails and send that off for forensic testing. And they're going to test the skin cells to see if they match him. When they tell him that, Alan kind of sings like a canary at that point. He comes clean. which, I mean, good on you in a way, because, you know, where they're basically telling them, like, I know it's you, and they're just lying and lying and lying, like, why are you doing this? So at least he was smart enough not to do that. And he tells them that he's the one who killed Betty, and he did this along with Shannon, that he snuck into their house, and while he snuck in, Shannon led him to where Betty was sleeping. Shannon put the pillow over her face, and Alan starts stabbing her. She starts stabbing, she's, you know, moving around, she's thrashing, and then she rolls onto the floor, and she tries to go under her bed, and Shannon, her own daughter, pulls her back out, and they choke her, and she dies. So Alan is arrested immediately, and then they bring Shannon in for questioning. Shannon, seeing that clearly the jig is up, she goes ahead and confesses too. And her story matches Alan's. But one thing police don't understand, and I had this question too when I was looking into this, is like, why would Shannon and Alan do this when Alan is Melissa's boyfriend? So it's just so weird for Melissa to be left out of this, because it just doesn't make any sense. It's not like they had been best friends for a year and then he got Melissa. No, he had just met Shannon and then met Melissa. It's weird. So while they're searching the house, they search Alan's house, and they search, you know, the Garrisons, of course. And in Melissa's pants, they find a note. And in this note are instructions for Alan to commit the murder, as well as what he's going to need. And it's almost like an itinerary. There's like a time slot, and it tells him, like, it's him telling her, you know, to turn on the light if she's asleep, so it's safe, to make sure the window's open, that he's going to need gloves, he's going to need this, he's going to need this. I mean, this letter, and it's fucking gross, and this is, again, how you can tell they're fucking kids, is because in this letter, it also says what time they're going to be back to make out. Because that's important. Is it? Ew. You have to remember they're teens, because if these were adults, I'd be talking so much shit right now. Gross. So they know now for sure Melissa was involved. So then they interview Melissa, and after talking to all three of them again, then they get the full picture. Melissa did leave the window open. She was part of the plan for Alan, for basically for them to kill their mother. I'm more than likely feel like Shannon and Melissa concocted this together, and Alan was kind of just easily manipulated, like most boys are. Well, you know what? Most teens are by their significant girlfriend. Boys are usually worse as teenagers with girls, but girls are just as fucking stupid sometimes for boys. It is what it is. Oops. It comes out, so how this went down is, Melissa opened the window, and he came in to kill their mother. Shannon did put the pillow over her mother's face. Alan starts stabbing her. But the pillow, at some point, with her thrashing around and fighting back, the pillow comes off her face, and Betty sees that it's Shannon who's smothering her. And her mom, I mean, Betty doesn't plead. Betty starts talking some shit and starts telling her, like, oh, you're gonna be put in prison, like, basically telling her, like, I'm gonna fucking have you locked up, like, you're not gonna get away with this shit. So that's when she rolls onto the floor. Shannon pulls her out. Shannon's the one who strangles her own mother to death. And Melissa is in the doorway watching the whole thing, telling her mom to die. Gross. That's just so repulsive for someone to be like cheering in the background of someone's death, let alone your own mother. Gross. And they didn't even have like a good parent, bad parent dynamic. Like they did, but they didn't, because their dad wasn't home. They had one parent, and you fucking killed her. It doesn't make any, like, teenagers are fucking stupid. I say that as someone with teenagers. They're not this stupid, but, I mean, they're gonna be doing some dumb shit. Again, hopefully it won't involve killing me. No. So, all of this comes to light. Shannon and Alan, they don't go to trial, those two. They just go ahead and plead guilty, which is great. Nobody has to sit through a trial, and they're sentenced to life. With Melissa is tried for murder 4 times, and she is found not guilty 4 fucking times. This girl just has this girl next door personality down so well that even with the letter and everything, jurors could not believe that she was capable of this. And you can't even blame her age. Well, it could be her age also. I was going to say you can't because Alan's the same age, but Alan admitted that he murdered her. And Melissa, it's just, we know that she was there. We know all of this, but they just didn't believe it. Melissa ends up pleading guilty for manslaughter, but she's sentenced to time served because she had already been in custody for a year. So she just walks right out. And the crazy thing is that now, 30 years later, Shannon and Alan are out of prison. Again, a lot of change in the legal system when you're young and you're getting life sentences. Theirs were overturned. They're out. Where they are nowadays, I don't give a shit. They killed someone. I feel like I spend too much time looking into them now. I don't need to know where they are. And I hope they have nightmares about what they did. I know you're supposed to grow as a person. I feel like murder. Whole different ballgame than like they accidentally hit someone driving. You know what I mean? And even at that, if they stopped and ran their day, totally forgivable. If they just fucking drove off and were like, la-di-da, I don't know what happened. Still. Not going to think the best of you, that's for sure. So, with that, they are out. Melissa actually passes away at the age of 25 from her type 1 diabetes. She has complications from it and she dies. Which is like, oh my God, Melissa, it's almost like your mom tried to fucking keep you alive. It's like she tried to avoid this and instead you helped murder her. Like, get it together, Melissa's ghost. Get it together. Now, we have to remember that technically, at this point, Melissa and Shannon were not her only children. She had Herbert's children also. They didn't live together. Apparently, they would talk about marriage and they would talk about buying a house together, and it would never happen. I have no doubt that a lot of it was due to reservation because of Shannon's kids. Or not Shannon's, because of Betty's kids. And I don't know if that was more on Herbert's side or if it was on Betty's side. Maybe Betty didn't want to burden Herbert with more than they were already dealing with together with Shannon's rebellion and then drawing Melissa into it. I have no doubt that the fact that Betty couldn't keep control, and I like when I say that, I feel like I'm saying something bad, but I'm not. They're fucking teenagers. And a lot worse shit can happen if you're not keeping an eye on them and trying to keep them grounded and making good choices. Or at least if they're making bad choices, it's the slightest of the bad. So I have no doubt that that's why it didn't go where they would have liked it to go. Maybe they were waiting for Shannon to move out to where, you know what? Not my problem anymore. Now we can be together. It's an ugly thing to think about, but I have no doubt that that happens with couples. And sometimes it's the parents' fault and sometimes it's not. Betty, it sounds like Betty really fucking tried. It really does. It sounds like she really tried and she did what she could. It doesn't sound like she really had family around or anything, so she really was on her own. But the saddest part is Herbert's kids lost another mom. Betty was another mother figure to them. They loved her. They saw themselves calling her mom one day. Maybe they already were, but they adored her. They really felt like she looked at them as they were one of her own. And it sounds like she did. So you have her own kids who are horribly ungrateful, spoiled, bitter, angry at the wrong fucking parent. And then you have Herbert's kids who know what loss is, who one doesn't even know by memory what her mother's face looks like. She has to look at pictures. And then these girls went and turned their mother into just a picture. It's really heartbreaking that Herbert basically lost 2 spouses and his children lost 2 mothers. That's just heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking, and really it's just insane, the contrast of the two. The ungrateful kids and the kids who are just grateful to have a mom. And it really makes you think. And it really brings gratitude into the spectrum, right? Just be fucking grateful for what you have. Because there's someone without it. And these girls just, even with the 2 kids there in their face, they couldn't get it. They're teenagers. But I feel like some teachers can grasp that concept, and it's either they couldn't or they wouldn't. So poor Herbert, him and his kids had to move on. Which, it really, I think my heart broke for them more than Betty's own kids. Because Betty's own kids did this to themselves. Herbert and his kids were just fucking emotional casualties. So sad. So, again, I have no idea where the whereabouts of Shannon and Alan are. Don't care. Good, well, I say good riddance, but not. I just hope whatever it is that they're doing right by the people in their lives. I think that's all we can hope for in this situation, right? But with that being said, that is the story of Betty Garrison and her daughters, Shannon and Michelle Garrison. And, I thank you for joining me. Please like, share, subscribe. I could not get that word out. Like, subscribe, share, comment. Find me I'm on TikTok the most now. There's so many social media platforms. The idea of posting to all, 4 of them is just, so TikTok's primary, some Facebook, even less Instagram, and and YouTube. But I thank you for joining me, and I really hope to catch you on the next one. Make good choices, god damn it. Okay, bye.